Hi, Priyanka.
Very good evening to you. How are you today?
Wonderful, wonderful. It's great to be back here every
It's great.
Thursday, 7 p.m. Over to
And
you,
how is
Priyanka.
Delhi and the rain?
Oh,
Good
it's
weather today, I'm
wonderful.
told.
I think the weather is beautiful today. It's just awesome.
It's one of the better weather days of Delhi. And
Yes.
welcome to a space that is being created so that there is always a somebody you can turn to. At the Own Your Future effort, we are starting with the OIF show. That is a space that is being built. You can always turn to somebody for help, for asking questions that you did not know who you could ask. Conversations, power nuggets, studies, insights, toolkits, learning management systems, and a lot more. Let this space be that your place so that you can go ahead and own your future. I'd start with the power nugget. Rajiv, what is the power nugget that we're talking about today?
Well, the Parnagar is a very interesting one today. And this talks about something very fascinating. I was in fact reading an article and I just picked up some interesting information to begin the show today. Well, as per IMF, equal participation of women in the workplace will actually increase India's GDP by a whopping 27%. And it doesn't end there, by the way. If you look at it, if globally there is an increase in women who start going back to work, this could actually boost the economy by as much as $20 trillion by 2050. So, guys, actually, what's interesting and what we're talking about today as a topic for us is returning career women, myths and possibilities. So, the whole opportunity for what women can contribute is just not by doing what they're doing so well, but also by contributing back to the economy. And these are studies, and enough that has been said about it. Today, we have a very, very special guest who's actually going to be helping us walk through some of this. Let me before we welcome her and have a discussion about it, Priyanka, do you want to just take us through a short little video about the show and then we'll invite our guest over?
Yes, it reinforces what we're trying to achieve, and that's how we introduce ourselves.
Well, here we have our special guest today, Gauri Das. Thank you very much, Gauri. Welcome to our show, the OIF show. It's such an honor and such a privilege to have you here.
Thank you so much, Rajiv and Priyanka. I'm so glad to be here, and I hope our conversation helps someone today.
I'm
I'm sure it
very
will.
sure it will. I'm sure Gauri has the wonderful hats that she wears. Perfect person to talk about. Rajiv?
Absolutely. And before we start the show, I just want to take a small little introduction of Gauri. Uh, and in fact, if I have to do that, I could do a full show about it, by the way, first of all. Let me tell you that, right? But I'll pick up a few lines about what she describes herself as. First and foremost, that really attracted me to what she talks about as she's a possibilitarian. She's a person who lives in possibilities and opportunities. And another very fascinating thing that I really liked about Gauri was she says her mantra in life is passion with compassion. And let me tell you, there is no better time than today when leaders could show up with compassion. Here is Gauri, an engineer turned into an HR leader, a top 100 under 40 HR person, the top 10 globally well known HR person who's been declared in one of the forums recently, a TEDx speaker, and many, many more. I think it's such a privilege to have Gauri on the show talking to us about returning career women, myths, and possibilities. And to spice it up, let me tell you one thing Gauri herself has actually walked this journey twice. So let's start with her by welcoming her to the show again. And Gauri, let's start by hearing about what exactly has it been when you chose and when you actually walked the journey of becoming a career returning woman twice over. Tell us about your experiences and your journey, Gauri. Over to you.
Thanks, Rajiv. And when we talked about how where I am today, and when I think about those career breaks, at that point of time, I used to think I would not be able to manage coming back. and I'll bring it up in the story. But yes, series of rejections and all of it. I That is first thing that I can remember. So this was first thing happened when we moved from. I started my career from Assam, Guwahati. So the first challenge was, would you get a job there? Forget about a career. And then I was just hoping that we go to a metro, we go to a large city, and I can do something better in my life. And then Ahmedabad happened. So this was really better than Guwahati, but not yet a metro yet. However, Guwahati being Guwahati, and this is around 15 plus years ago, our belongings, our the truck, it took around 3 months to reach Ahmedabad, and we were living out of hotels and having an apartment without having anything else. This is how we were living. So that would be last thing to look for a job. And Ahmedabad market in those times also was not very mature to offer a job to an engineer. So I continued to struggle to understand the language, understand how things operate in a business city, and then started looking for a job. So this was first break that I had to go through, and this made me change my career altogether. So I was doing HR, and then I moved to education. This was first break. And second break happened when I reached Mayanagri, Mumbai. And this also was along with the birth of my bundle of joy. And I'm so glad it happened together. Otherwise, this would have led to third break for me. So both combined, second break, I was in Mumbai. And Rajiv, you are aware, I started my journey from a small village. So this, like I said, Maya Nagri was kind of very hard on me. And I didn't know what to do, how to enter a local train, and to put things in perspective. Since you have stayed in Mumbai, Rajiv, Priyanka, I'm not very sure about you.
I
So
have
Rajiv, you have, okay, so you would also
long
relate to
years.
this.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so it took me four torn dupattas and four footwear to learn how to enter a local train. So that's how the journey started. And then again, when my daughter was around 2 years, I restarted looking for a job, and this time things were extremely difficult because of my own reasons. One, I had lived out of 4 states in last 4 years. This was second break. 2 years I was not working, so skills also were a challenge. I started looking for a job here, and then rejection pe rejection, like we call it. And I met with 13 rejections, interview rejections. Those CVs and all would have been 100 plus, but 13 rejections in interview, and that's how I could come back to the corporate world again. So
So
I
that's
lucky
my
think
13, lucky 13 happened for you somewhere, right? Is
yes.
that what it means? Right?
Yeah.
my story of Bombay locals includes. I think Bombay locals for me was motivation that this is the life that I do not want to choose for me when I have tough choices to make. And so Bombay locals is like a little bit of an epitome. For me, it was somebody standing on my footwear, and I didn't know it was not okay to be near the door if it was a stop that you don't want to get off to. So the rest is a story which we'll talk in private. But I didn't realize that if you're not getting off the stop, standing near the door was a sin. And we all learned that the harder way. Of
I'm glad
course,
you survived and you are here today.
I survived, and it was motivation. It was motivation beyond my own recognition that I'll do whatever I have to do in life, but I will try to, encourage all of us to make choices which let us live a more holistic life. I have
Yes,
tremendous amount of respect for people who make that choice and that journey every day. It is not to take away from the effort they make. They make that effort for reasons that is best known to them, and I have a lot of respect actually for people who make that choice every day. So without of course, for me, who had seen that for the first time, I had different motivations, and we all pick up our own signals along the way. So i
absolutely.
i picked up those, and which is why I want to talk about, if you were returning post COVID, which which is a monster that all of us are still understanding better. What would you have done differently? I'm sure the rejections and the not being able to make it through an interview is one story. But if that was to be done post COVID, how would that be any different?
Yeah, I think COVID or no COVID, things would be totally different today because there are so many resources. There is social media. This I'm referring to 2010, and that time I wasn't even on LinkedIn. So there
Yeah.
is no way to network. You are in a new city. Here we are today connecting from three different cities, and it doesn't matter where you are. So COVID definitely brought in this silver lining, and I was reading a recent report which stated that earlier, 46% of women returnee would apply for jobs. Now the number has reached 82%. This was, I think, March 2021. So I'm seeing it as a positive sign, and not many women in that particular story shared that their in-laws or their husband, they are encouraging them to come forward and go to work because you can work from home now. A lot many people have accepted that as a new normal, and things are changing. So COVID has become a silver lining there. But yes, if I had to come back post COVID, I would do one thing, which is volunteering, because that gives me a lot of mileage on my resume. That gives me, that helps me with skill building. Like I mentioned, Priyanka, a lot of reasons why I was getting rejected, and I knew about them, that lack of skill was one of the things. So those 2 years I had nothing to show on my resume other than taking care of the child, taking care of family, and adjusting in a new city. Those things don't add up. But today, in this period, you can connect with lot many organizations are supporting with internship. There are volunteering opportunities, you can do those, you can be part of various networks, you can network. So networking would be second thing. And likewise, being present there, like having your visibility out there, would be third thing that I would do differently. And these things were non-existent at that point of time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
leveraging social media to the fullest would also be one of the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to you, Priyanka.
Like,
I think it's a very interesting point that you make, Gauri, in terms of the possibilities that are uh, different and unique, if I was to use that word, from just a shift in the environment perspective. And I
Yes.
think that's a very very fair point to sort of highlight here. Uh, Now, I just want to shift focus into you not being the returnee, but you being the wearing the HR hat, you being the person who uh, is not the person being rejected, but the person who is rejecting others. If I was to say that, right? Let me now give you the power to reject, right? Till now you've
Perfect.
been talking to us about the story of being rejected. Now let me give you the power of rejecting people, right? And I think that's a very mild way to put it, but having experienced it, I'm sure you understand what it really means. Now, now, given the fact that now you're powerful, you have the power to reject, and you are the HR supreme authority, the वो कहते हैं ना, मतलब the person who can do so many things. Now, I think the point that I want to bring out in our conversation now is to say that when you receive CVs, profiles of women who are returning into careers, who are restarting their careers, right? What is it that you look for in their CVs? What is it that you believe must be there to be able to say, okay, we must take this forward. We must do something with it. So, what comes to your mind when you look at those CVs, and what has been your experience around it?
Yeah, so not specific to any organization that I work for, but overall, what I am observing, I will share that. In terms of looking at resume, so what happens with women returnee lot many times is they are extremely committed to join, but there is some gap somewhere that I have seen lot many women returnees to return back home, and within 3 months, first 3 months they would struggle. They will try to manage things, but some point of time, and the number may be as high as 30%. So the first thing I would like to see there is attitude. because when I'm hiring, I am taking a risk there, because as we know, mindset, as we all know, we want people to hit the road running uh, on day one of their joining. And here we are talking about women returnee. It can be a career gap of 2 years, 3 years, 8 years also. So you are taking a risk as HR professional, and you want the best for the organization, and you want the proposal to pass through as well, right? Because there are multiple layers through which this interview would happen, and finally somebody would be selected.
Right.
So attitude is what I would look at, and I will evaluate it through definitely different questions, but real life examples. One thing would be, um, is there fire in the belly to be back, or is it certain situations or peer pressure that is forcing you to be back? Because not everybody is coming back after maternity break, or after any other break. You take a break for career, caring for others, or whatever reasons you are doing it. Not everybody is coming back. So this fire in the belly is very important for me, because that gives me a signal whether there is longevity or not for this particular person. Next would be again the focus on skilling, because there are so many opportunities today. What did you do? What are you bringing to table when you were away for taking care of somebody, or whatever reason you had? What did you do at that point of time? Was it only related to that, or can you bring up something? Can you bring up any transferable skill or anything which can be utilized in the role that I have on offer? So that would be second thing. And finally, understanding the background, the family where the person is coming from, because I have had these negative experiences where people are pulled back. So I don't want to go by that also. So these three would be the criteria, and this third thing would actually include your resilience, your emotional intelligence. So these three factors would be important for me.
So, would I be fair if I say that, for somebody who's choosing to step back, digital then becomes a very interesting medium to be able to showcase the softer aspects that you, Gauri, and somebody in your position will look for? Would you now extensively leverage digital more for a returnee person so that some of these questions that you have raised are are kind of getting addressed or are kind of getting their due share, mind share as a response?
Yes, for sure. So mindset, digital or no digital, nothing. It has nothing to do with that. But other than that, definitely, and that's how people change their career. No, somebody being in HR before they went for maternity break, when they come back in digital marketing, or they come back in digital content creation. So it's also the time to evaluate what you really love, because when you move from college to a corporate, or college to a particular role, you may not be fully aware what is it that pulls you, what is it that you are really passionate about. But when you get this time, you introspect yourself, you know what you can do good in terms of volunteering, you have already tested it, and now you bring that to table and tell me, okay, this is what I want to do. So no doubts on that, the digital is the way to go, and it is extremely helpful when it comes to women returnees.
Interesting. So would
I
you
Go ahead.
would
Go
you
ahead.
recommend people to actually actively leverage it so that it is reinforcing what is written on the CV, it is answering some questions which will never otherwise get asked? Would
Yes,
you
absolutely, I would recommend that. I will highly recommend
थोड़ा
that.
और मेहनत करो उस बात पे कि
Mm.
मतलब what is not on your res, because that's a logical question that comes to my mind, because in front of you are CVs. There, of course, there is this returnee program, and there the effort towards women and diversity and all those questions exist. But finally, you are very right when you say, please, can you hit the road running, and are you going to continue because you are an investment?
Yes.
So
So कैसे
those
आप trust
considerations
दिलाओगे,
will
that's
never
very
go.
important. Yeah.
And of course, for somebody who's not who doesn't have the conventional sense of showing that in the most mundane, boring, conventional way possible, you will have to make that extra effort and be a little more visible so that these soft aspects which don't ever get asked are addressed without somebody having to do the hard work, because we're touching 1 billion. There are enough choices for all positions.
Yeah, you brought a very important point, Priyanka, and I think all women returnees must keep this in mind that you have to fight for that position, for which there are many people who are more skilled or are there. They are
Yeah.
also applying for it. But why would you have? Because organizations want to have more diversity, leaders want to have more diversity, and we know, like Rajiv cited the data, that what can happen if women can have the 50-50% share in the, or all the genders coming together, they are there together, what can happen. So if we do this, then definitely we have to be ready that there will be more challenges, there will be more efforts from, and that's where mindset piece becomes the first criteria, that fire in the belly. Do I want to do it for myself is the question.
Yeah, and I think I like that point of yours, fire in the belly, and I think that's true for any person who wants to sort of stand up and stand out. Actually, anybody who's keen to do that needs to demonstrate that, and I completely agree with that. Uh, you mentioned about data, and I was reading another piece of data, and I was sharing this with the Priyanka during the day today. Uh, in one of the reports, it said in India, in today's context, if you look at it, if 50% of the women actually join the organized sector, and the fact that 50% of them don't have a mobile phone, and because they start getting into jobs and they buy a mobile phone, over the next 5 years, there is going to be about $17 billion worth of revenue generated for the mobile phone industry in the next 5 years. Now, just look at the context of what indirect economic impact the whole element of women who are not working and not having a mobile phone can have over on the economy in terms of the cyclic effect of jobs in the mobile sector, creating opportunities, distribute, and the whole chain. So I think what we really miss out on also is to try and say we look at one part of women empowerment, we look at one part of the way women need to be contributing towards jobs and the success they bring to the table, but there is so much more behind it by just giving them that ability to come back to work. So I just thought I'll just leave you with that another interesting data which I found very fascinating actually today. Right.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's like connecting the dots from here to there and then having the whole picture. So thanks for bringing it up, Rajiv.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting. Now the other pieces, and I actually shared that information today, the Deloitte study which talks about the
Yeah.
impact on women on account of COVID and what it has done to women who are sort of either moving away from workforce, the impact it has had on their well-being, and the impact that has it has had on the relationships that have sort of started getting about, I would not say broken, but getting fractured, both at workplaces and at home. Now, in the context of that, I think what's coming out clearly from those pieces of information, that survey across 5,000 women who were surveyed globally, are two things. Number one, that more women are choosing to stay away from work in the post-COVID area, and they are probably being affected the most today, right? I think that's one part of it, right? The second element is that now that most of them have moved away, they're going to come back hopefully, and they will have to be motivated harder to come back to work, because they either have a challenge of dealing with relationships that have been sort of bruised or affected through the work from home challenges, or other elements from well-being and so on and so forth that got affected at workplaces. uh, my question is around that piece, which sort of stems from the fact which says that are organizations, to your given your understanding, because you're in the thick of it at this point in time, are organizations, one, recognizing that this shift has happened, two, are they willing to invest consciously to get these women back, and if so, how do they want to do that? So there are actually three parts to this.
Yes, and I think it's very pertinent because what lies ahead is very important for us to understand from both sides, as a women returnee and as organizations, and the best practices. So I think you are absolutely right, Rajiv, because I have seen some of my friends, even in HR circle, it's not that you have to go to office every day, those sort of roles. They were working from home, but they had to take a break because everything came on them, right? The moment this started, it's like taking care of kids, taking care of family. There's no maid. For 8 months we did not have house help also. So how do you manage everything? And that's the time when we realized even our house helps are extremely important, and they play a role in our
In our success,
professional.
actually. She's the
Yes, yeah.
woman for a good one. She's probably the woman behind the success for a lot of else because
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. Yes. So,
sorry, you were saying.
I know, but you brought out a very good point. So, yes, they are the ones who help us succeed and help us remain there. When they were not there, many of us could not be there. So, they had to leave the job because of these reasons, and then they shifted into alternate careers. Now, again, Priyanka's point, digital, is it really, are we going to leverage? So, they leveraged it and they started doing something else. By then, they had this realization also what they are best at. So, this happened at one end. Now, organizations at to certain extent could not support, otherwise they wouldn't have lost them. First question is this: why are we losing people, right? Were there any possibilities we could have counseled them, or we could have helped them in some ways, flexibility, whatever could have been done, and we could have asked to stay. Now, since this did not happen, I have some doubts that there are 100% concerns or 100% efforts to bring them back also. Because the reason for them to exit was quite similar, and now when they come back, it would be a similar thing. So these are two parts. And third part would be, I would again say that we as an organization try a lot to bring them back. But why do we allow them to go at first place? So when people get married, even if they are in the same city, they would want some time off. Now, lot many places the flexibility would not be there. I think those cases, except they are going abroad, where there are compliance challenges and legal challenges, we should not allow women to exit itself. That would be the first step to work on, because once they exit, it's difficult to pull back. It's inertia, it's a lot of other things that it becomes very difficult. And Rajiv, I don't know if you have some data around how many can come back or how many generally come back in a year. So we can definitely have a look at that, but I'm sure 50% से ज़्यादा शायद नहीं होता होगा. In my experience, I have not seen more than 50% coming back. At least 50% stay back in the same sabbatical format. So that is first thing. And second thing, what more can be done? So this entrance itself becomes a hindrance, because your hiring manager wants somebody who is ready on day one. This person would not be there. So the pressure or the kind of situation that we are in, it has to be led by the senior management. If you decide that this is what your target is and you want to hire only such returnees for work, and it's why only women, it can be men also, because they are also taking organizations are increasingly supporting them as well. So second thing we would think would be the mindset shift, both at work and in home. Because at work, okay, as a manager you are okay to hire them, but when you go home, you are a man of the house, and you don't support. If you don't support, how would the woman come forward and she would work? So these are three things which I would like to say organizations should do, but the focus area according to me should remain on not letting them go.
Yeah,
Can I say
Gauri,
very?
I agree with you. Just
Yeah,
before
go
you
ahead. Go ahead.
jump in, I think one thing that comes to my mind is that you bring out a very interesting point, which is about the classical element of saying stop exits. It's like a bleeding wound, right?
Yeah.
You need to sort of arrest the bleed to make sure that the recurrence is stopped and the clotting happens faster before you start fetching something else. And there's always saying prevention is better than cure, and I think that's a very normal conventional practice that all
Hmm.
of us look at. I think from a returning career woman perspective, I think there are only two things that come to my mind. One is, given the COVID environment, given what has happened both at home and at workplaces, and somewhere the lack of transparency in engagement, communication, and an ability to sort of manage the balancing act of the work that needs to get done, right, has led to a very different environment, because this is a phase that nobody has really been experiencing into.
Yes.
And because it's a different time, I think the real question is that what has worked in the past will not work in the future. What
Absolutely.
people have gone for are not traditional and standard reasons why people have gone out for, right? Therefore, are organizations really keen to invest in the fact that, yes, we recognize that there are some very basic, simple things that if we do, there are chances for, like what you said, to arrest the bleeding so that we stop what is happening. And secondly, run some sort of initiatives and programs which attract returning career women to get excited enough to say that this is a place for me to go back to, rather than saying that they're not ready to run the first day itself. And I'm talking about a mindset change here. And that's where the real I've been speaking to a few leaders, I've been speaking to some other people, and to tell you very honestly, uh, I don't find that positivity coming through in people wanting to take that initiative. I don't know what your experience has been. So I just wanted to hear before Priyanka jumps in and says her words on it.
Yeah, so I fully agree with you, Rajiv. And like I said, when we allowed them to go, and these were the sectors which were booming. Some of the examples that I have are from insurance sector. It was not that there were layoff and there were financial challenges with the organization. Now, I think this is pretty similar to what we used to have, Priyanka and Rajiv, at the time of diversity and inclusion when that started. When that started, at that time also, you had to bring up policies, you had to bring up anonymous CVs so that the process goes through and people are hired, right? Or you bring up a policy, this year we are going to have 100% women only or 100% different gender only, and that's how things progressed. Because it's going to take, and Rajiv, if you remember, we discussed that what are we doing at home becomes a workplace, because organization is combination of people. And though we wear the mask, not the COVID one, the other one as well, but we remain within the same person. So we spoke that if I am telling my daughter that it's not only your mother who cooks, your father also cooks, and somebody else is telling their son that the same thing, things will change. But talking about today, I fully agree with you. Things have not changed, and that's why I'm saying it's senior management's intervention, it's policies, it's that anonymous. We have to go back to the same game which we used for diversity, and we are at certain levels. So I think, yeah, mindset shift still is a question
Good.
mark.
Interesting. I think you made a very interesting point. I think this calls for probably another conversation with probably another group of people to see what is possible to to bring in diversity and inclusion 2.0, dealing with what you are referring to. And I think that's a very interesting point you make. Thanks for that. Over to you, Priyanka.
I have something different to say, and my take on the matter is that the journey from home to office and office to home doesn't change you as a person. So it is the same people who are going home, and it is the same people who are coming to senior management or decision making roles. And because we have more men in that space, these conversations will probably be lesser understood. The challenges of a homemaker are lesser understood by men for reasons that we all can debate in a different conversation. But it is the same human being who's making that choice in office and making that choice in home. And the statistics say that 2 million women dropped out of work over the last 10 years and are unlikely to come back, at least by Gauri's some estimate. 50% of them are unlikely to come back. So, going back to how we started this conversation, where we say that why are people dropping off at all? We are dropping off at all for that reason, because it is the home which is what it is. And it is that same, sorry for the word, I am a feminist in this case, but with all due respect to the men and the hard work that they do at all levels, it is the same gentleman who then moves from home, whose wife has dropped off, to the office to make choices for other women and their careers. So, what are the chances that he'll make any better choices at work? Should his wife have had to make that choice? So it's all I wanted to say is that it's the same person who goes from work to home and back. And if the statistics are showing that more women are dropping off, it's quite unlikely that it will be something drastically different at work. So that said, I want to talk to um, Gauri, about men returning. And is that a concept either? Like, that I don't expect a program in the near future, but is that even something that crosses your table? Do you have returning men, or maybe on a lighter note?
Yeah, I think those who go and launch their startups, but they are not able to manage it, that is one category which all of us would have seen. That was happening 5 years ago also, so that is one category, because there is some time where they are just looking for a job once they are done with the venture, and unfortunately it did not work. So that is there. And Priyanka, I read, I think this report was in month of April or May, very recent report, and I was also surprised to hear that I think Deutsch has a program for men returning. Then there's this organization called John Deere, which is tractor manufacturer.
Factored manufacturer.
Yeah, even they have a program which caters to men returning also. So yes, it is already there. You will be happy to note that.
I'm surprised, and honestly so. But I have something to say. So I want to talk about something that we haven't probably preempted. I want to talk about taboos. So the lady moved out, and now she's a returnee because she did sweet nothing, which we all know after COVID was obviously not nothing. But the taboo continues, like some things that we've touched upon during conversations, saying, will she hit the road running? Is she afraid? Will experience or the lack of it be a challenge? So why will that not apply to a returning man? Isn't that a taboo? It was a startup, it didn't work. Now come back with that badge on you and then try to hit the road running. Like, why is that not a taboo? Or you as an HR person, would that be a thought that crosses your mind, or is that a thought that crosses an HR's mind, not you maybe?
Yeah, so you are absolutely right. It is because social norms have still not changed, and it's still accepted that women would, like, I did it twice, but my husband was working both the times, right? There was no career
Yeah,
break. So if he had to do this because I took a transfer, it is, yes, it is
it is
taboo. And
understood.
yeah,
Yeah,
for me it's understood, but for men it would not be understood easily. But
yeah.
I think there is some light towards the end of the tunnel, and things are changing. But yes, when I read, like I said, frankly, that when I read about this program, returnee program, which caters to men also, I was surprised. And I thought, okay, this is also happening, and this is where we are going. Because if you look at maternity leave, it's 6 months, paternity leave is 10 days. So we have those differentiation everywhere. And also we always say, and Rajiv will definitely connect with this, that we say if mom is home, she will help in cooking and she will take care of things. If father is at home, he's of no use. So when no use, then definitely there is a taboo. So
See,
things are
fathers are never
changing.
of use, by the way. Let me put this on record. And I say that with all humility and reality so that all men understand this. That their fathers are of no use. They claim that they know everything, but they know nothing. Right? And I'm going on record in saying that. Okay.
Deepasina has made a good point, Priyanka, if you want to
Yeah,
take it.
I want to take that, and I want her views to go out, and I want to read, quote unquote, what she wants to share with us. She says, I want to make a point. Returning career women need some positivity, some excitement to be able to get out of the inertia. I think she says something so pertinent. I think it's the inertia for whatever reason that might be. There are challenges, but there is definitely the inertia that each individual may carry, and that inertia is obviously not helping the GDP. Like, it's definitely not bringing 50% of our population back to organized workforce. So yes, it is important that you try to get yourself, because it also links with what Gauri was saying. Be out on the social media more often. If I have that inertia in me, just getting that CV and being available with my thoughts on through posts and through social media will be that much less visible, will be that much less possible. So yes, I understand. It's something that we all say, oh, when I was discussing this conversation with you, so me and Rajiv spent some time during the day, and I was wanting to frame a certain sentence, and his first reaction to that was, sympathy is a word that you cannot use. Please don't portray this bitara image of nobody, like, it's not oh poor you, it happened to you type. So it's definitely not what This definitely the word I cannot use. But yes, I like what Dipanjana says. I think it's
Yeah,
something which
absolutely.
highlights a facet which doesn't otherwise get its light in the day.
I think great. I think that's interesting. And as we come towards the close of this very fascinating conversation, uh, Gauri, what would be your top three tips for anybody who is looking at returning back? And if you were the person who's sort of scrutinizing the CVs, guiding somebody, saying these are three things you must do, these are three things you must be careful about, uh, what would they be? What are those three things that you would suggest? Three is indicative. We can go up to five also, by the way.
Okay. I think the first thing would be self leadership, because this will have a lot of things. It will start with self awareness, so we know what exactly we are looking at. Second thing would be having that, now that you are aware, you accept yourself, because I was there and I know how this negative voice used to keep telling me I would not be able to make it after each rejection. And like I said, 100 plus resumes I would have sent across, and I did not hear back from them. So this happened for sure, and this voice I had to it always keep its mouth shut. So that would be self acceptance. I can do it is self belief. So self leadership, self awareness, first of all. Once you are aware, you know your negative and areas of improvements also. Accept yourself fully and know that you are on a journey. And once you are there, invest in learning. So that would be first thing, self leadership, because like Peter Drucker says, we are chief captain and CEO of our own lives, and if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for us. And for women it is even more important, because we discussed they have to fight for that space. So that would be first thing. Second, I would say women should utilize these services which are available today, which are career counseling or coaching, and they can help you with, because you do not know what is the format today for resume, where is 8 years, how it is working. If you are away for 3 4 years, things would have changed drastically.
That's
So you would have no idea what's happening. And now that these services are available, when I took 2 breaks there was nothing, but it's since it is available, utilize them, and they are definitely go be there to guide you. So mentorship or coaching, whatever you want to call it, do that. And third, I would say that have this learning agility. Even if you come back and you start going for interviews, you will have a lot of learnings from each interview. Have a note of it and try to be on this learning journey forever. Because it may not click today, it might take some time. It took around 6 months for me. Don't get discouraged, because there are so many women whom I know that they get discouraged with rejections. So have this resistance, have this resilience and perseverance, that okay, today it has not happened, but it would happen. And this is where the coach would be helpful again. He or she might become a sounding board also. So self leadership, you have to do it. Second thing would be career counseling, and third would be resilience, this grit that we call it. We have to have it in us, and then rest of the things fall in between the three.
wonderful. I think you said it so beautifully, and it actually ties in so well with what we stand for as a show. Own your future. It
Hmm.
actually finally boils down to that whole thing. Take control of your life, own your future, believe in yourself, and what will get unpacked will be magical. But if you
Absolutely.
choose not to own your future, uh, nobody can help you. And I
It's
think
a
that's
free
the
fall
reality.
then.
Pardon?
It's a free fall then.
It's a free, absolutely right. It's a free flow, right? So I think the bottom line is own your future, show up with resilience, and make sure that uh, if nothing else, stay committed to yourself. And if I was to just add to what you said, resilience shows up when you're committed to your own self,
Yes.
because otherwise your foundations can shake you off. And those who win are those who continue to be committed to themselves. And I think your experiences, your candid comments on some of the tricky questions that we asked you was very you were very kind to sort of be honest and truthful that you are. I really want to thank you for your time and your wonderful insights that you shared with us. And we look forward to sort of continuing our conversation, because this is a conversation which has no end. It has a beginning,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
just need to
Yeah.
keep it alive. We need to keep it going, and more such conversations will hopefully awaken people to do the right things. I
I think
think that's
I must have chosen to own my future in the Bombay local. Like, I need to be able to put enough on the table that this is an experience which I possibly need to change for myself. So maybe somewhere in that stuffed local train with people standing on my footwear encouraged me to work that much harder and make choices which are not conventional,
Conventional.
so
Yeah.
to say. And there's a last comment that I will slip in. Dipanchana has been kind enough to share her thoughts and join us at the show. Thank you so much for sparing the time. It is we appreciate you share your thoughts as well.
and we've had also a visitor today, special one coming in from Nigeria, Lady Patience. I think she's been kind enough to join us. Welcome and thank you for joining in, Lady Patience. Look forward to sort of engaging with you offline again. Great. Thank you very much.
And
Thanks once
Indrajit
again.
as well. Yeah.
Yes, and
Indrajit was also there.
Mr.
Yeah, that's
Indrajit
right. Sorry, I missed.
was so
Indrajit has
kind
been
to.
very kind. He's a wonderful soul, actually. An
Yes,
amazing person.
absolutely.
Amazing person. Great. Thank you very much once again, and thanks for your time once again. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. And I really loved what you said with all humility that fathers at home, but I'm
No,
sure Priyanka and my kids would not have
we,
such
we
an experience
yeah,
because
actually,
things
it's
are
kind of
changing for
when
good.
you say it amongst the girls, and when you say with your girlfriends,
Yes.
it's different. But not something I was looking for reassurance actually. But
So that's because I'm a proud father of two wonderful daughters. So that's why
Wow.
I can sort of say that.
yeah,
And of course, a granddaughter, right?
okay.
Okay. Bye bye.
Super.
Bye bye.
And Priyanka, our Mumbai story some other day.
Yeah, we'll meet in the green room. Let's close this, and
Yes.
we can
Yeah, yeah.
we have a few minutes.